As these presentations advance, my subscribers and listeners are going to be given information that will initially be very hard to accept because there is virtually none of it presently available in the spiritual marketplace or anywhere else for that matter. The one theme that threads through every spiritual teaching is the belief that humanity will someday find itself in some sort of utopian paradise. Whether that utopia is found on the streets of gold just beyond God's pearly gates, or whether it is some vague sense of utopia predicated on fifth-dimensional ascension illusions where the gods walk among men along the lines of Alice Bailey's brand of theosophy. What I ask my listeners to take particular notice of is that none of these utopian wet dreams are ever highly defined. They are always left intentionally vague. These propositions of utopia are nothing more than a lure, a hook, to get people to buy into whichever system of escapist beliefs is being peddled to its particular audience. It's butterflies and rainbows and singing angels and oh so spiritual bliss. Please excuse me, I have to go vomit. When we observe the turmoil the world is in, as I have highlighted in my videos, we have to realize that there is not going to be any utopian society along the lines of the Fabian proponents like H.G. Wells or George Orwell or Aldous Huxley, or writers like Ira Levin in his Utopian Society book, This Perfect Day, which is nothing but a variant theme on the Fabian concepts of utopia. In every one of these futuristic utopian scenarios, there is always a big brother figure or his equivalent. In the modern spiritual circus, it is the self-proclaimed ascended masters and their great white brotherhood who are the big brothers, the star people who, if we grovel to enough, will walk among us like gods and allow us to bask in their glorious fucking presence. Just as Orwell's big brother was perceived to care about the needs of all the proles under his control, the inorganic, divine, ascended masters peddle their own version of caretakership over all those people who believe that they are benevolent or have our species' best interests in mind. Just as the proles in Orwell's 1984 were expected to love Big Brother, these ascended master con artists want their followers to love them, peddling their doctrines of love and light, and warning people to stay away from anything that varies from their own groveling doctrines of dependency. This is nothing more than Orwell's Big Brother wearing the clothes of spiritual deception. As Alice Bailey's teachings at the hands of her own ascended master Big Brother did not hesitate to reveal, there are only certain ones acceptable in their version of the New World Order, and that is only the ones who agree with their doctrines and are willing to be subjugated to their false spiritual beliefs. These cosmic con artists don't want cognitively awakened human beings in the ranks of their subjugated ranks. They demand drones who all walk alike and talk alike and act alike in their fucking New World Order age of bullshit spirituality. I ask my listeners to take note of the fact that every utopian vision of humanity is founded on ideas of fancy and illusion, but pay particular attention to the fact that absolutely none of these purported utopian ideas is ever defined. I invite all of my subscribers and listeners to see if they can find one single example about this whole New Age concept of some kind of utopian transition taking place without being intentionally vague. Okay, so you believe that you're going to be ascended to the fifth dimension? I ask you honestly to describe to me just what the fuck is this fifth dimension you expect to ascend to. I mean, it all sounds cool for those with expectations of some kind of spiritual escapism, but explain to me just how your enchantment with fifth dimensional escapism is any different than the pearly gates scenario peddled to the Christians or the Muslim vision of heavenly reward promised by their gods. Moreover, I ask that you contemplate on why it is only fifth dimension escapism that is bandied about by the New Age, but why not sixth, seventh, eighth, or ninth dimension escapism? Have any one of you believers in this doctrine ever pondered that notion? With each and every one of these escapist, sleight-of-hand spiritual illusions, it is always something that leaves us waiting on some future event, coming tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that. These escapist lures keep people always chasing the carrot of escapist notions dangling in front of their eyes, but it is always out of reach. At least with the pearly gates description, we have the lure of streets paved with gold and gemstones, which only proves that the Christian God is wrapped up as much in superficial trappings of materialism as any greedy, ego-oriented human being. When we turn to the theosophical notion of ascension, we don't even have these definitions as a lure when we envision being elevated to the fifth dimension. Come on, let's face it, you are buying a pig in a poke if you continue to hang your wishful thinking ego notions of escapism on that utopian hook. Hell, these doctrines really don't even give you a hook to hang your hat on. They are only playing on your imagination and your emotions, and I guarantee you that there is not a one of these believers that can remotely describe what this fifth dimensional realm even looks like. Let's do a reality check here, because spiritual pragmatism means that we deal with reality, not wishful thinking. Let's take a moment and analyze this utopian nonsense and follow it to its ultimate conclusion. Let's see. Okay, I believe that I'm going to be magically transported to another dimension, or I believe that the vibration of the earth is going to separate and the goody-goody love and light believers are going to be vibrated to the realm of cotton candy and butterflies in a parallel earth where everywhere we look we will find rainbows and nice fluffy clouds. When this magical occurrence takes place, we will all suddenly wake up wearing multicolored robes and sandals, with each of us wearing the equivalent of a glowing golden halo, denoting our specialness. Our world will magically transform to something like the Land of Oz or some mystical variant of Hogwarts where magic and energy rule the day. We will be able to levitate and walk on water, and we will all greet everyone we meet with a stupid syrupy grin, put our hands together, and continually utter Namaste to everyone we meet. None of us will have to work or expend any effort because our ascended masters will provide for our every desire. We don't have to cook or hold down any kind of day job in this magical utopia, as our ascended master overlords will tell us everything we need to know as we advance our magical and energetic abilities free of charge. We will no longer be human. We will magically transition into beings of pure energy and light and live just like the people did in the Land of Oz, all wearing our colored glasses so our magical vision is never impaired by having to view stark reality. We will all have the ability to heal using the multicolored rainbow energies of Reiki, but none of us have yet figured out that when we ascend, we will be free of disease and everything else associated with being human, so those healing modalities will become defunct and useless. But hey, don't confuse me with the details here. So, let me continue. Oh yeah, we will spend our days healing each other, and our healing skills will elevate to fifth dimensional healing, and we will all live our lives continually happy and living in a state of bliss, where we have no problems, and everyone will think the same and be the same. We will contemplate the flowers and the butterflies to see what they can teach us. We will swim with the dolphins and whales because they are our cousins and can't wait to embrace us as brothers and sisters when we ascend into this fifth dimensional spiritual land of milk and honey. Okay, folks, that is about as much of that syrupy bullshit as I can take in a single dose. I think I just got sugar shock. There are those who, of course, are going to take offense with me pointing this out in the harsh light of day, but let's get real here. How can anyone buy this escapist nonsense without seeing it as nothing more than the childish, wishful thinking that it is? This is really little different than Christians being enchanted with the idea of dancing around the throne of their God, singing praises and hymns all the livelong day for eternity. Now, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but if you ask me, it would take me, about 5 minutes of such singing and praise nonsense before I got bored shitless and broke away asking where the beer kiosk is. I mean, this is supposed to be heaven, right? Is dancing around the throne of God all there is to do here? If so, please book me a ticket on the next train to hell, because this just ain't cutting it. I can imagine nothing more hell-like than this vision of continually praising some God who only wants to live surrounded by such lame-ass sycophants and have his ego stroked and be showered with praise and worship. The stories about the Christian heaven are equally as vague as the New Age bullshit. All of it was designed by beings who know what it takes to cater to base human ego emotions. Oh, We're all going to have our heavenly mansions as the biblical renderings of heaven goes. Tell me with a straight face that this form of the heavenly welfare state is any different than the utopian dependency welfare swill pumped out by the ascended masters who are responsible for creating every religious and spiritual doctrine on the face of this planet. Can anyone but me see the repeating pattern in all of these scenarios? Ladies and gentlemen, it's all operating from the same friggin' script. It is Joseph Campbell's monomyth repackaged with alleged spirituality. It is a tried and true formula specifically designed to cater to the fears of the ego, and which ego-oriented people have been believing for well over 5,000 years. Now, the New Age hustlers use the term New Paradigm in their teachings of spiritual misdirection. Like everything else, they hijack, they co-opt, and they twist and distort. What I've just illustrated is their version of the New Paradigm, not the actual one. And within none of these scenarios do you find anything more than vague notions preying on the imagination of the ego, who feels it deserves these rewards simply by believing whichever brand of nonsense these inorganic cognitive manipulators continually sell to our species. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? You don't have to buy it. The cosmic con artists and their earthly henchmen of the consortium want you dependent. They want you begging for their guidance, hanging on to the alleged words of your God or the channeled messages of these cognitive raiders. They demand that you bend your lowly human knees before them and acknowledge their presumed supremacy over such lowly creations as ourselves. So long as you continue to play their game, whether they profess a new paradigm or not, it is not new. It is ages old and recycled over and over and over again. And you know what? It keeps working because people stubbornly refuse to advance their cognition of their own free will and move out of this fucking quagmire. And until we do, it's going to repeat, and there'll always be the same old shit repackaged for you to swallow hook, line, and sinker. We have to draw the distinction between becoming cognitively aware human beings who can each stand on their own 2 feet and transcend the dependency syndrome of religions and spirituality that we have all had shoved down our throats and up our asses through cultural indoctrination and multi-generational programming, passing on the same dependency syndrome from one generation to the next. We have to put aside the things of a child. Wishful thinking, inflated expectations of things that will never be, and always waiting for what these spiritual snake oil salesmen continually tell us will be here tomorrow, or the next day, or some indeterminate time in the future. And realize that we've been had generation after generation after generation. We have to be adult enough to admit that we have been conned and draw the line so we will never be conned again. We live in a world exactly as described in the song by The Who, We Won't Get Fooled Again, where these spiritual doctrines are concerned. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In order to step into the real new paradigm and stop these repeating errors of human misjudgment controlled by the ego, we have to see the scam for what it is. This verse sums up a more realistic view of the new paradigm scenario than all the spiritual doctrines on the planet combined, for the most part. The change, it had to come. We knew it all along. We were liberated from the fold, that's all. And the world looks just the same. And history ain't changed, because the banners, they are flown in the next war. As this verse notes, and as the ground crew knows on a gut level, and even those who are aware of the world situation know, this change has to come. And we knew it all along. If we are not yet liberated from the fold, the herd, we are working to move ourselves away from the herd mentality. As we make this transition into the new paradigm, the world is going to look just the same, and the history of that world that brought us to this point is not going to change. Expecting some kind of magic wand solution to make this all go away is not pragmatic. Escapist notions of responsibility avoidance run counter to the idea that we each have to stand up for the freedom of our own consciousness, and it in no way removes us from the responsibility of living in this world and facing its problems. I ask my listeners to look at all the New Age and religious bullshit doctrines and see where any of them are offering anything that resembles this type of common sense approach to advancing humanity. They all peddle nothing but problem avoidance and escaping reality. You will not find a single cogent solution offered in the New Age or religious doctrines worldwide. Not a fucking one. And that is the line of distinction between what the New Paradigm books point out compared to the escapist rescue by God or aliens bullshit peddled in the New Age as their new paradigm. The rapture as peddled in Christianity, and every other idea about heavenly rewards in other religions. As noted repeatedly throughout the handbook series, there isn't going to be any rescue. It's up to us to pull each other and ourselves up by the bootstraps. The idea of rescue is the personification of the victim mentality, and victims will not be rescued. There's no room for the victim mentality in the new paradigm. Personal responsibility is the keynote of freedom. What I am sharing with my listeners is common sense spirituality. It is spiritual pragmatism. And to be spiritually pragmatic means that we must realize that the world we live in is not going to magically disappear, and that tomorrow we will wake up in Oz or sit on a cloud with our angel's wings playing a harp in heaven. Who would even want that? How fucking boring does that sound? Do they have electric guitars and Marshall amplifiers in heaven, by the way? The handbook accurately advises us to work on our cognitive advancement while dealing with our everyday lives. Such advice is well delivered, and we would all be wise to pay attention to the advice given. You are not expected to check into an ashram or monastery to achieve your own cognitive advancement, and this is not a race either. People are going to advance their cognitive awareness in the amount of time it takes them to progress according to their individual circumstances and focus. The reason this path is individual is because there are no two humans who have had the exact same life experiences. In working towards the second cognition, we all have these differences on a personal level that we each have to face and overcome. I don't even like to use the word levels because it brings with it the connotation of some kind of linear progression in all of this. As those who have walked this path for any length of time have realized, it is not a straight line undertaking. We each find different avenues of our own personal research that makes each individual path unique. What served as some of the catalysts to advance my awareness may not be the same catalysts for yours. This is one reason these video presentations take what may seem to some to be a broad spectrum approach. No one knows what piece of information is going to catapult us individually to a greater point of understanding. What appeals to one may not appeal to the other, and this fact alone should illustrate why the individual spirit path is not a cut-and-dried linear progression. If it were that easy, then these videos would not be necessary. I bring up the word levels only because it denotes a position of understanding that most people can get their heads around. We get our education based on this concept of levels or grades, and we bring this concept into our spirit studies. The spirit path is a progression with lots of twists and turns for every individual. It's not linear, but even if one moves into a parallel channel of study and research for a time, it is still part of the overall progression towards the second cognition. People are at different stages of their development, what some assume is a level. Some of us know more than others, not because we're better, but simply because we have moved further along in our own research and understanding, or have been working at it longer. For those who have progressed further along, we feel a sort of obligation to help others along by sharing our knowledge and accumulated wisdom with others who are seeking the same goal. By doing this, we are not creating another type of authoritative dependency syndrome, but are sharing our own insights with others that may serve as the spark to advance awareness in them to help them progress in their own road to understanding. We have been so handicapped by the first cognition culture that doubt rules our minds. We have been made to feel that only an authority figure has anything of merit to say, not little old me. Meanwhile, the authorities that so many place so much stock in are the least among us.